You and I are chatting at the end of May 2024.
The purchase price is low 200s, and after it needs 10 to 15k reno, it's going to rent for 400 a week.
Matt Brooker, flight instructor, military man and property investor, shares his story of building a $4 million portfolio from very humble beginnings.
I grew up in Bundaberg. We didn't have a lot of money. I had a lot of half brothers and half sisters. Me and my dad would restore cars, just make a bit of money on the side, just while I had my full-time job.
What stage did you start going, okay, what if I did this with houses?
The last restoration I spent 40 grand and only made like less than $1,000. And after that, I was just like, there's got to be a better way.
As well as sharing the lessons he learned from the Air Force to help build a $4 million portfolio.
I think there are three main things. Firstly would be communication. Cool thing to do when you're negotiating property, and that's really stemmed from the communication side. Second ones would be goal setting. We have what's called PBET. So it's plan, brief, execute, and debrief. Third one will be
determination, action, and large profits. My name's Todd Sloan. You're listening to the Pizza and Property Podcast, and this is my chat with Matt Brooker. Matt Brooker, how you going?
Good, Todd. How are you?
Mate, very good. Very happy you're sitting across from me. I don't think I've ever had anyone on the show that's a pilot, and I'm wanting to pick your brains a lot about the aviation side of things and how it's crossed over and helps you build what's now a $4 million portfolio across 3 different states, which is awesome. You've done this by your mid-30s. But before we get into all of the detail of how you've done it, ups and downs and all the rest of it, could you talk to me a little bit about how you actually select the areas you invest in?
Yeah, definitely. Firstly, I'll look at what an area's got in regards to probably population. There's some mining towns and that I stay away from, but population is a big one. I don't want to see anything sort of below 10,000 people. And I look for value in spots where there's been a bit of a stagnant growth. So for example, like Townsville, I bought there a few years ago, and I just saw that there was really good value there. Nothing really happened for quite a long time, and I seen that they were investing quite a lot of money in there with the defense side of things as well. And I just found that was I saw that was some good value in that area. And how I check different suburbs and things, I have a spreadsheet that I track and put addresses in and see what the cash flow is going to be like. That's how I track individual searches that I do.
Well, and with your spreadsheet then, so that's more so on a property side. What about an area side? Is there a spreadsheet for that you've got?
No, there's not really an area side. It's more an individual addresses.
Yep.
But I guess I got an idea in my head of what areas I'm interested in, more so those first few things I was talking to you about is there money being spent in those areas? What has the prices done over, say, a 10-year period?
So what gives you the confidence that something's going to go forward then? Because this is always that kind of age-old way of looking at it. And I've referred the whole shoe salesman that go to the village on the show before. I'm not sure if you've heard me tell that anecdote. Yeah. I won't tell it again. I'm sure it's on several episodes. But what makes you look at it and go, oh no, this is time. It's not proof that it doesn't go anywhere. It's like, this is proof that it's about to happen.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. Like I said, I do this on the side. I don't have a special formula that I've got, but I guess I'm kind of good at looking at areas and looking for some value, whether they're pumping money into that particular economy, looking at different drivers, how's the population growth going, what's the vacancy rates in those particular areas. That's sort of where I start.
So it's a little bit of a combination of instinct and evidence?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so there's not like a set formula, but there's also not just like, oh, it's a gut feel. There's obviously research going on this too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the area you're most proud of picking?
I think Townsville. It was long before podcasts were saying, hey, Townsville's an amazing area. You should buy in there. I got a couple there. So, and I bought there well before everyone was talking it up.
You said a few years ago. How many is a few?
About 3 years ago.
Yeah, so you really were an early adopter.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, awesome, man.
Yeah.
All right, talk to me a little bit about growing up as a kid. What kind of home did you grow up in?
So I grew up in Bundaberg as a kid. We had just a normal rental property. We didn't have a lot of money. I had a lot of half brothers and half sisters, so it was a bit of a juggle with finances and that kind of thing.
When you say a lot, how many?
3 half brothers, 3 half sisters, and that was all we had in that house. And I got another half sister on my dad's side.
So there's, what is that, 8 of you all up?
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you must have been fighting for attention a little bit growing up.
Yeah, look, we're into horses, so we did all that. I didn't feel left out whatsoever. It was good growing up. It's just we were definitely in the countryside, being in Bundaberg. You know, it was about an hour out of Bundy, like I said, didn't have a whole bunch of money, but we made up for it with doing things that didn't cost anything, like riding horses, going to the beach, that kind of stuff.
And what did mum and dad do?
Well, my mum was a cleaner. My dad is into restoring cars and panel beating, that kind of thing.
And that's, you and I talked about this a little bit off air. Is that one of the things that kind of lit the spark getting into property? Because didn't you used to restore cars with your old man?
Yeah, for sure. My dad's in Brizzy and mum's in Bundy. They split a while back. But what got me into, I guess, renovating and that kind of stuff was me and my dad would restore cars just on the side. I'd take weekends off and leave from work, and we would do that and just make a bit of money on the side just while I had my full-time job.
And how old were you then?
That was probably early 20s.
Early 20s. And what's a bit of money? Because I remember when I first left school, I remember looking at a job in the paper and it's like guaranteed $400 a week. I was like, $400 a week? Oh, I'll do anything for $400 a week. Those big bickies to me back then.
Yeah.
Are you talking you're making like $500 on a car, $100 on a car?
What
are you?
For certain cars, I'd only make a couple of hundred. But other cars, like a full restoration, where it would take like a year. I think the best I made was like 12,000.
That's pretty good money.
Yeah, it was it was a Sandman, like a Holden Sandman. Yeah.
That had a bit of capital appreciation as well.
Definitely.
Around that time.
It's probably worth double now, but that was probably the best one I ever did. But it was a good little side hustle I had going on with my dad.
And so at what stage did you start going, okay, what if I did this with houses? Is that like many years down the track, or was that a transitionary point at the time?
Definitely a transition. So the last restoration I did with my dad was a dual cab combi, and I spent a lot of money on it, like over 40 grand, and I only made like less than $1,000. And after that, I was just like, there's got to be a better way. And then that's when I started looking into property and talking to a couple of friends that I had from school. One friend in particular, we were friends in primary school, and we just met up through social media. And basically we're talking to each other, just caught up, and I found out that she was retired and she was like 26 and buying all these properties in the States and doing all this crazy stuff. I'm like, you're like mid-20s, how are you retired? Like, I couldn't believe it. And then I spoke to another friend. He was sort of early 40s. We're really good mates today. And he had 4 properties. And I was just wanted to know every single thing about how that worked. And, I was doing the car thing, but it wasn't really working out amazing. I just wanted to find out more about the property side.
And what did you learn from them?
Firstly, I found out what equity was. Had no idea about investing whatsoever. I was like, equity? You can pull out and loan against pretty much nothing. Like, I just couldn't believe it. So, I was, this was before podcasts. Podcasts were very in their early stages, sort of when I was 26, 27, and just learning everything, speaking to friends, finding out how they source properties, like what do you look for, sort of thing. My friend back then, she was, showing me different areas and this is what you look for and that kind of thing. So that's when I bought my first investment after my PPOR.
And what age are you then?
I was, this was my second purchase. So that was, I was about 27.
27. Okay. All right. So you're not starting like super early, but it's also not like late. You're kind of somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you're 35 now?
Yeah, just turned, yeah.
All right. So from 27 to 35, you've basically escalated from PPR to like 10 rentals in a portfolio.
Yeah.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I got goals, so I'm trying to get to a year. It's getting a lot harder.
Yep.
But yeah, I was trying to get to a year until I get to 14.
And why 14?
Because I worked out that that's the kind of cash flow I require from X amount of properties to effectively give us about 120K passive.
And that's after a sell down or after like holding it for?
Yeah, correct. So we're going to purchase the 14, try and pay as much off as we can, and then sell down 7. But more now that I've sort of gotten into the property journey a little bit more and I've found how good leverage is, I'm sort of leaning towards doing similar things when I get the 14 pay down, but also leverage that equity and potentially purchase like a commercial property to achieve the same cash flow.
Leverage and borrowing is absolutely something I want to open up with you in a little bit more detail, because I think, and what did you describe your broker as before off air? A wizard?
A wizard.
I want to talk about him.
Yeah, definitely.
But before we get into that, look, I'm curious about basically pulling skills from different sections of life. And this is something that I enjoy doing myself, because I think it helps grow as a person and grow as an investor. What skills have you learnt from being both a pilot and in the Defence Force that have really contributed to the growth of your portfolio that us mere civilians just wouldn't be exposed to?
Look, I think there are 3 main things. Firstly would be communication. So when I first started instructing a few years ago, I was a little bit shy, I guess. And being an instructor, you meet new people constantly. I'll take someone up that's never been inside of an aircraft before, has no idea what they're doing, and I can explain it in a way that they get. So you would know as you've got a few hours up yourself, you know, when first time you stepped in an aircraft, you're like, what is going on? I've had people that have never been in a big plane before or even done a flight sim. So I like that part about explaining in a way that it breaks down for so anyone can sort of understand. I guess that relates to speaking to property managers and real estate agents and that kind of thing. Okay,
so what, like a real clear line of communication. So and you're using this so like accidents or problems don't happen, or using this from like a negotiation side, or how is it kind of really helping?
Yeah, both. So the accident and problem side. So if something comes up, I've got strategies in place, you know, my spreadsheet tracker that I track all the finances and that kind of thing, and I've got buffers in place, and also talking with agents to explain what needs to happen. And also I like the negotiation side. I never thought I would. It's kind of like cool thing to do when you're negotiating property. You're like, oh, I can pay this because of X, Y, and Z. And that's really stemmed from the communication side, especially being in the military as well. I got a small team that I manage as well, and that's good. That's been great for the communication side.
You're a Chris Voss fan?
Chris
Voss. Oh, that's a no.
No. I feel like I should know. Oops.
He's actually been on the show before.
Okay.
Former FBI hostage negotiator.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an absolute weapon.
Yeah.
If you haven't read his book, highly recommend. Never Split the Difference.
All right.
Very
cool.
good one.
Noted.
Yeah. All right, anyway, I've interrupted you.
No,
so
that's
3
all
things.
good.
So communication's the first one. What's the second?
Second one's would be goal setting. It might be a bit of a throwaway line, but I really think goal setting is super important. So if I didn't have goals, I wouldn't sort of have any property, right? So I'd probably just still have my PPOR and just ticking that away. But having set goals, you know, getting that X amount of property, like I said to you before, we want the 14 properties, 2 a year, break it down over 5 years, pay it down. That's the overarching goal for us.
So when it comes to goal setting, like is this something? Because I've got like Full Metal Jacket as my military training. Like I've never even set foot on a rifle or anything like that. I don't know anything about it from first-hand experience. All movies. I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong here, when you're setting a goal, it's very like, this is the objective, this is what we're going to do, and then there's a very big list of what needs to be executed to actually like make all of this happen. Is this something that I'm just making up from watching films, or is that how it actually works?
That's pretty close. We have what's called PBED. So it's plan, brief, execute, and debrief. So that's how we do a task. So we'll plan it out, have a discussion of where it's at, brief it, how are we actually going to do it, execute, actually do it, whether there's risks and that kind of thing, and debrief. So how did that task go, and can we do it any better? So I think that probably relates quite well to the property. So I hadn't even thought about it like that, interlink it with property, but yeah, it's a good point.
Is that maybe something that you just like do now? Like you don't even think about it after it's kind of been trained into you? Or?
Definitely, yeah. Now that you've said that, yeah, for sure.
And so PBED, so is when the debrief happens, how would you go about doing that? Because that's always something that I've really enjoyed doing after a deal. Sit down, and Bianca and I actually do a bit of a thing with it. You sit down, have dinner, and you kind of like pull the whole deal apart or the reno apart. And you're like, what could we have done better? Where did we stuff up? What did we do really well? And then take that knowledge on to the next one. Is what kind of similar for you? Or?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said before the pod, we've just got a contract on another place and it needs a bit of a reno. So I've done a couple of renos in the past, so I kind of know what's required. And getting a project manager, because it's interstate, I'm from Adelaide, it's from Melbourne, so getting the right people in place is really, really important to make sure it goes smoothly, and also try and get it done as soon as possible, because every week that it's vacant, you're missing out on rent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's something you picked up from a project beforehand that you've maybe got from a debrief to go, mate, wait a second, building this team is much more important. Have I understood you right?
Yeah,
there?
exactly. Then trying to do it yourself, trying to make 100 phone calls to try and get a bunch of people together.
Yep.
It's much better having the one person, let them project manage it. And then, because they know the people, they've got their own list of contractors that they can use, rather than me trying to go on Google and try and find who the best painter in the Gold Coast is, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can find it, but how long is it going to take you versus how much it's going to cost to get yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so communication, goal setting with PBED framework. What's the third one?
Third one will be determination. Again, it sort of ties in with the goals. So we wouldn't be doing what we do, yourself included, if we weren't enjoying it and we didn't have determination to finish this. So I think it stems from the military background and also the aviation background. So being in the aviation environment, it's very high standard, very conscious on safety, and you want to improve yourself. So every flight, I'll even come back and say, maybe I could have done that a little bit better with my instruction, making some notes for myself, that kind of thing.
What makes you determined?
I guess I wouldn't be doing the property and the flying if I didn't really enjoy it. If it was something that I didn't enjoy, would I be doing it? Maybe not. I think the determination comes from the motivation of what you're actually doing.
I've put a bit of thought into this, and I think for me, it comes from like some childhood memory of playing with Lego and it really being fun, because I probably said it on the show before, I couldn't do what I do in property with shares because I just don't have the same kind of interest. Some people, though, the thing they enjoy and the thing they're determined is making money. And I guess that's what I'm trying to understand is for yourself, is it like, no, I just genuinely love real estate and also obviously enjoy the making money side? Or is that reversed? And it's like, no, I want to make the money and property is just something I kind of enjoy.
Look, I think it's the other way. I really enjoy the property and the money is just a bonus because again, being flying, I eventually probably want to go to the airlines later down the track and, not sit on a beach and drink Coke all day. So,
Glad you're drinking the Coke.
Yeah.
Different podcast. Otherwise.
Yeah. Not the other thing.
So when you say you want to go to the airlines, like you're thinking like get a job with like Qantas or something along those lines?
Qantas, Virgin.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. All right, so communication, goal setting, and determination. And your determination sounds like it comes from a genuine love for real estate, but also, if I've understood you right, wanting to open up options later in life.
Definitely, yeah. I guess I don't want to rely on a job. I just want to be able to do the job with other, you don't want to rely on sort of the paycheck at the end of the day. And the fact that sort of buying and selling of, doing the cars at the start and then transitioning that into the real estate, I just find that, you know, buying something needs a bit of work and improving on that. I've always found that interesting ever since I was doing cars.
And has most of your portfolio growth come from the equity uplift? Like, because obviously it's serviceability and equity, but is most of that equity been value that you've forced on it, or been more market uplift equity?
It's probably more so market uplift.
Okay.
Going back to the areas that I was choosing, finding those areas, it's mostly been equity uplift. However, you know, doing a reno 15, 20K, I've never done anything that needs like a substantial reno. Probably the most I've ever done is maybe the kitchen sort of thing. So
you're doing like light cosmetics.
Yeah,
sort of stuff.
Exactly. And that's all, you know, that's all I've been doing, and it's been working great. So I don't know if I want to dive into like a full strip out and that kind of thing. Maybe later down the track, see what happens. But yeah, it's mostly been because of the whole area's grown up.
And so just to timestamp this, you and I are chatting at the end of May 2024. Do you mind opening up a little bit of the numbers on this? Because when you told me about it, I was thinking that, yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so this one that you're referring to is North Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
The purchase price is low 200s, and after it needs, say, a 10 or 15K reno, it's going to rent for 400 a week.
So what is that, like an 8%?
Yeah, it's in the nines. Yeah,
nines?
Yeah, like high eights. Yeah, yep.
That's outstanding. And what do you reckon equity uplift will be? Like, would it crack into the threes, or would it be high twos once it's done? Or?
It'll be probably flat 3, I think. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I guess that goes back to what we were saying originally with looking for areas, and that, you know, there's a lot of people hating on Melbourne at the moment. But the more that I look into it, the more that I find that it's like the deals are starting to come through and the rents are starting to come up. And it's similar to what I found when I was first looking in Townsville. You know, I got this place cheaper than it was 10 years ago, which is, you know, similar to what I was getting in Townsville when I first bought there.
So what makes you so confident on Melbourne then?
So it's showing the similar characteristics like how Townsville was when I was first looking there. Obviously, Melbourne is one of the biggest cities, if not the biggest in Australia. They're also spending $125 billion on a railway network over the next 50 years.
Massive,
huge amounts of money in that corridor, and the purchase was, you know, just north of Melbourne, so it's still within the sort of inner city ring.
So okay, so you're not talking that you've bought like regional Melbourne, like Ballarat or anything. It's actually in like Melbourne.
Yeah, Melbourne. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's I don't know where you can find prices like that in any other capitals for that price.
And a yield like that straight off the bat. So are you positively geared, or Strata kind of killed that a little?
No, Strata's cheap actually. You know, just over $1,000 a year. Rates are cheap, around 800. Water's cheap, about 600. You know, these prices are really affordable.
And are we talking like a high rise where there's 50 of them, or this is like a nice little low set block?
Yeah, low set, only 2-story. You know, it's a 70s sort of style, but I find that they're solid as. They're, you know, I probably wouldn't go to a high rise. I'd stay away from those.
Yep.
But those, you know, the 70s, 60s sort of builds.
Old yellow brick.
Yeah, exactly. Those kind of things that need a bit of TLC, and they rent great.
Okay, and so you've done this now in 2024, and it sounds like it was born of frustration of continuously missing out in Perth, not wanting to pay overs. So you're like, all right, where else can I be looking? Where's the zig while others zag? Where's the Townsville 3 years ago? It's taken you to Melbourne. You've locked in a deal, which by the sounds of things is going to close very soon.
Yep. That's
got a positive cash flow from like day dot.
Yep.
It's got an equity uplift, plus you've got some potential for, all going well over the next few months and years, some pretty strong capital growth as well. It sounded like things are pointing in the right direction, mate.
Yeah, look, I guess it's something that I've been pretty good at in the last few years. I've just been looking at the areas, following you guys on the podcast, listening to Arjun as well on his podcast, Smart Property Investment. So just taking all the knowledge from all the professionals. Like I said, I'm only I only do this on the side and do some flying and defense work as well. So just a bit of fun.
I wanted to read a quote to you, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. This might make you think nothing, and it could be a boring section, or it could be good. I don't know. But I like this one. This is Jocko Willink. If you stop looking for a shortcut and you find your discipline and will, then you will find your freedom. What does that make you think of?
I think that goes into, like we were saying with the three things about the determination. Stop looking for a shortcut. So nothing in life comes easy. Everything, especially if you want to achieve big things, it's really difficult. Most things are. You know, this property journey that myself and my wife's been on hasn't been easy. We've had our ups and downs, had some crazy things happen with weather events and that kind of thing. But it comes down, if you really want something, you will achieve it. You just need to break it down into manageable pieces.
What do you think is the most difficult thing you guys have gone through to get to where you are that people just wouldn't see from the outside looking in?
Yeah, look, you know, when you say, oh, 4 mil and, you know, all this, it sounds really cool, which it is, but it's been tough. Like, we've been days where there's just been crazy maintenance. We've had that weather event over in the Gold Coast that destroyed our roof partially, not completely. That I had to call SES and get them to come out. They didn't come out because it wasn't as bad as some other people.
Why are you calling the SES? Is that even an option?
Well, I was like, I may as well try it because my roof is like flooding, that the ceiling's caving in. I got to do something. You know, that they weren't able to, obviously, because they had some other important things to attend, but I had to try something. I finally got a handyman out, which he helped just putting a tarp on the roof. But yeah, it was challenging times, and then trying to get the roof fixed through insurance and that kind of stuff, which, yeah, it was tricky in itself. You know, challenging tenants. And another thing that's just popped in was in Perth, we need to replace the roof with a strata building, and that's over $1 million.
How many tenants in, or how many
it's about
owners?
60, around the mid-60s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, you know, it's
the kind of time you're actually happy that it's a few people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's about 20-something thousand each member, and they tried to get that over a 12-month period. So, but we've sorted that out. Again, we've attended the strata meetings, and we've come to an agreement where we'll try and loan the funds. We're trying to get that through insurance as well. But that's just some of the things that you face. You just got to work through. But I don't mind it. I guess it feels like you're moving forward. If you're not getting challenged, I feel like I'm not moving forward. What's
the different way that you've been challenged that was the negative effect? So instead of a positive, like, cool, this is a challenge that moved me forward, is there something that comes to mind that was like, this actually didn't move me forward in a happy way? This was just crap.
Well, the roof wasn't very fun. Yeah. It definitely has cost me a lot, which is chewed into a lot of the capital growth that we've had. Haven't had a great deal in that particular property, but yeah, that's probably the most challenging, I think, that we've faced. In the previous year. Yeah.
Okay. I asked that more so around mindset, because I find whenever I'm interviewing people that have achieved pretty big things, usually they find it hard to actually find problems, because a problem is generally framed in a new way to learn something, a new way to grow as a person. And I was actually just interested how you'd answer that question, and you've kind of done it perfectly. That it's a challenge, but you've immediately associated it to something that was a challenge that you learnt from, you got better from, and you called the SES. I didn't even know that was an option.
Well, it probably isn't, but I gave him a try.
So as far as books, podcasts, people, is there anything that is like a lit the spark moment, like a proper change to your life influence that you've had?
Look, I know a lot of people say Robert Kiyosaki, but it's definitely Robert. The first time I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was early 20s then. I read it and it just opened my eyes. I was like, rat race, like what even is that? And working until you're in your 70s, I thought that was just what people did. I just couldn't believe that there was a different mind, like totally different mindset. And I was saying to you before the show, the next day I went to my work and I told all my mates from work, and I was like, have you guys read this book? Like it's insane. Like, there's this thing called the rat race where you're in a job and you can't get out of it type of thing. And, Robert Kiyosaki's got his podcast now that he still does today. Still listen to him. So he's been majorly influential, especially around the precious metals and that kind of thing as well.
Get into a bit of gold and silver?
Yeah. I'm starting to over the last year or so. It's, I find it really interesting.
Silver's actually done well recently.
Yeah. Gold's done well too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of silver. I haven't got into gold yet, but I feel that whole gold to silver ratio has been out of whack for a little while now.
$40 an ounce for silver. It
doesn't make sense.
So cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to turn this into the silver podcast, but you and I can chat off air about that.
Yeah, exactly.
But getting towards the pointy end of things, something that I really wanted to open up is around getting finance to keep scaling. Most people stop at 2 or 3 rentals and they're like, oh yeah, you can't buy 4, you can't buy 5. Why is it that you've got to 9, 10, soon to be 11?
Yeah, definitely. So firstly, really got to have a good broker. So they got to know the ins and outs of small refinance and that. However, the broker thing aside, what you need to look for with purchasing, there's a few things. So you need good cash flow. So whether it looks after itself or it's slightly negative, because you'll get to a point where you hit serviceability and the banks will just say no. So you might get a 2 or 3 and then hit a point where you can't go any further. So from day dot, they've got to look after themselves or close. I know interest rates are quite high at the moment. So even if it's negative $50, $60 a week, then that's sort of what I look for.
Okay, so strong cash flow from the beginning.
Yep.
And when you say strong cash flow, I know to some people, if they're used to living around Sydney, Melbourne, yields are pretty low. Strong cash flow to someone like that might mean a 4% yield. That's not what you're talking about though, is it?
No, buying something for 1.2 mil that rents for 600 a week, that's not going to get you there. Yeah, sure, you can go and buy it, but you're probably only going to get 1 or 2 before you hit a wall. So the next thing I look for is good upside for growth, like what we were saying for, might need a small reno, look for good areas, that kind of thing. And low competition as well. I mentioned it before about that Perth property. I just don't want to get into bidding wars. I know Perth's hot right now. That's why I'm starting to look into Melbourne. Because, agents call me and agents want to do me a favor, which I'm like, wow, this is weird. I've never had this before. So it's good. And also, lastly, is base your numbers off the market rent. So a lot of the times when you look at these properties and they're for sale and they list their rent price, it will most likely be under market rent by quite a lot.
What's the most you've seen recently?
Probably over $100 under market.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and this is for units that rent for $400 a week.
And so you've just seen them currently rented at $300 a week?
Yeah. And they could, you go on realestate.com and they're all $400 up.
I think this is actually a really important one because it's very easy to overlook. It's very easy to go, oh yeah, but that's what it's rented for, so that's what it's worth. It's like, no, because sometimes there can be a big story behind it. There might be a landlord that's just thinking, oh, I don't want to put the rent up on him. That's Kathy. She's been here for 10 years. She's a good egg. We'll keep it low. And maybe that's the case, but it's like that doesn't mean that that's market rent. And so you're looking at it through that lens of doesn't matter what it is, what can it be? Yeah,
correct. And when I put the numbers in my spreadsheet, because I've got a finance tracker, I basically put the costs in, all the associated like maintenance, strata, property management fees. So when I say property needs to look after itself, that includes everything, even maintenance. So like you said, with the rent, putting in market rent, 300 versus 400, the deal might be worth it rather than being super negative when you're looking at 300 a week.
And it feels like you're actually doing your numbers off of the right numbers then as well. not off of like the current numbers that seem like the right numbers, but they're actually wrong.
And that's right. It might be a difference between someone just going straight past that property. So yeah, it's just going that extra step to getting those accurate numbers.
And what gives you the confidence that your numbers are accurate? Where are you getting it from?
So realestate.com. So looking at the prices. So and also on the house, you can see what they're rented for, not renting for. So things that I've already leased. So that's a good tip.
So when you say rented for, like, is in what they actually got, not what they advertised?
Correct, yeah.
Because I found that was always a problem with RP data, is that it will show leasing, like the asking price, not necessarily what it rented for. And it's like, they can be two different things. That seems to be leveling out a lot now. But a year ago, it's like they could be asking $450 a week, and then all of a sudden they got $550 a week. But $450 a week leasing price was still what got advertised on RP data.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it sounds like either way, you're still not going off of what is currently rented for, which is the important part.
Yeah, that's it. Because most of the time, like you said, someone will be living there for 20 years and they've got a good relationship. But, the market rent is the market rent. So you want to base your numbers off that.
Anyone that's been really inspired by your story, Matt, what's something that they can pull out the headphones right now, put into action straight away?
Look, so firstly, talk to your broker. So that's, if you really get an understanding of where you're at in regards to finances. So property is more of a finance game than it is a property game. So find out what the bank wants. Do they want you, to get a yield asset, cash flow asset, a capital growth asset? And if you don't service, find out how much by. So say if you're not servicing by 100 a week, maybe, get some rental increases if you've got other property, or say a pay rise, or, cut your Netflix subscription or something. So that's the first one.
Before you continue there, if you're still at this later stage of the podcast, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you're serious about growing a property portfolio. If you're on Spotify or iTunes, hit that rewind 30-second button. If you're on YouTube, just pull that scrub bar back a little bit, because what Matt's just said there is going to be real easy to overlook, but that is absolute gold, because unless you know what the bank is looking for to be able to give you more money, all the strategy and readings and everything in the world isn't going to do anything for you if you can't get the finance for it. I feel like it's something that gets thrown around all the time. It's like property's a game of finance with a few houses thrown in. And I think I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like the importance of that doesn't always really feel, it doesn't feel like it's got the gravity that it deserves. So if you're serious about this, which you're still watching me talk now, I'm going to guess you are, rewind, listen to what Matt said again, and absolutely implement that, because it can be an absolute game changer between getting one or two properties and doing exactly what this gentleman in front of me has done and grown a $4 million portfolio. Anyway, man, I interrupt you. Keep going.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. Because, being not able to service 100 and then cutting a few expenses and then you're able to keep going is a huge difference. And getting those numbers right. Again, you want to make sure that cash flow is gonna, can you afford it? Can you afford that negative $50 a week? Really have that in your calculations. And the second one will be look at both the capital growth and the cash flow, both as a combined, not just one or the other.
Okay.
Because a lot of people look for either capital growth or cash flow, but you can definitely have both.
Okay. Do you always think of the little Mexican taco girl when you?
Why not both? Yeah.
Mate, well, speaking of food, we've arguably arrived at the most important question of the entire show. Matt Brooker, what is your favorite pizza?
That would have to be Meat Lovers from Killer Tomato in Newton.
Where's a Killer Tomato?
Yeah.
Newton here in Adelaide?
Yeah. I'm from SA.
I've never been to Killer Tomato. I thought that would have been a pizza place I surely would have heard of with a name like that.
You should have. It's great.
Okay. And so you're getting a Meat Lovers there?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And do you ever make them at home, or are you always going out for them?
We do make them at home. It's a bit of a, we're getting there. So, it's not easy.
You
making the dough.
Cooks, or?
No, we are. It's just the dough is so hard to perfect. I guess we need probably a wood oven or something to make them proper, but
Yeah.
we're getting there. We're getting there.
But when you're doing it, you're going all out, like making the dough from scratch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, that part's the hardest.
Yeah. You
yeah.
do something, you do it right, don't you?
Exactly.
Well, Matt, this has been a really good chat, mate. I think that this is going to open up the eyes of a lot of people that are wanting to scale portfolios. I think the fact that you've brought some discipline from a military side into the property investing space, you've got a very logical and level-headed way of looking at something that could be intimidating for a lot of people, but you seem to just sort of see the path forward, the simplicity in it, but it's that taking action, the goal setting, communication, and the determination to keep moving forward that I can't help but think is one of the things that's got you to where you are right now. But are there any final words of wisdom or anything you'd like to leave everyone with today before we part ways, mate?
Yeah, look, just take those 2 steps. Make sure your cash flow is good. Talk to your broker. They're probably the main 2 I would start with. And that'll allow you to keep going.